All right, we are going to talk about the cell cycle. So this is the first thing in genetics that we're going to talk about. And basically what it is how our cells divide, because our genes are held in DNA and each cell has a nucleus with DNA in it. So the more copies we make of our cells, the more copies we have of our DNA. So the cell cycle is very important to genetics. It's also actually one of the main reasons that cancer happens is when this gets broken. And we'll talk more about that later. So the cell cycle. So at this moment, millions of cells in your body are dividing. It's a part of a process called the cell cycle. The cell cycle is a sequence of events of growths and divisions, meaning where the cell grows and then when it divides, that cells undergo, and it is divided into three main stages: interphase, mitosis, and then cytokinesis. So stage one is interphase, and this is the longest period. This is the thing that takes the most time. And during interphase, the cell will grow, get bigger, make copies of its organelles, make more cytoplasm. It also makes a copy of its DNA. So in a cell that's getting ready or has gone through interphase, you will see it has two copies of DNA. And it also prepares to divide into two cells. Sometimes that means changing shape a little bit, and we'll look at that in a second. So that's stage one. Stage two is mitosis. So this is the actual part where the cell is going through the process of dividing. So this is during the stage where the cell's nucleus divides into two new nuclei. One copy of the DNA is distributed to each of the two daughter cells. So that means the nucleus that is holding two copies of DNA is going to pinch into two nuclei. This one has one copy of the DNA. This one has another copy of the DNA. Mitosis has also been divided into four phases. These are the phases that the cell actually goes through in order to change its nucleus from one big one with two copies of DNA and to two smaller ones, each with one copy of DNA. So this is kind of what those stages look like. Interphase, remember, is the first stage. You'll see here, and then all of these things are DNA. And then they all line up along the middle, and then they pull apart, and then a new nucleus forms. You see that? Okay, new nucleus forms, and now the cell, you can't see that part, the cell will divide into two new cells. This is not a part of mitosis. This is not a part of mitosis, but this is mitosis, 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 and mitosis. The final phase of the cell cycle is cytokinesis, and it actually, its name actually means exactly what it is. Cyto means cell, and kinesis means splitting, so this is the splitting of the cells. It's the final stage in which the cytoplasm actually divides, and the organelles are distributed into each of the two new cells. This usually begins during telophase of mitosis. So if you look back here, right here you see that we have our two new nuclei with our new copies of DNA in them. And so now the cell is going to start to distribute its organelles into its appropriate places. It will go through this last phase of cytokinesis, and then we will have two new daughter cells, two new cells. Okay? It is different in plants and animals because of the cell wall. So in animal cells, the cell membrane squeezes together around the middle of the cell, pinching cytoplasm into two new cells. So here we have our new nuclei with our each one copy of DNA. Then we have our ring that goes around the center. It's kind of a microfilament or a protein ring, and it starts to squeeze and squeeze and squeeze, and it'll eventually pinch these two into two separate cells. Okay, two separate cells. That's how it happens in animal cells. In plant cells, remember, this is going to be a little different because plant cells have a cell wall, so they can't easily be pinched, right? The cell wall does structure. So plant cells will have a cell plate that forms along the middle and gradually develops into a new cell membrane and cell wall. So here you have your two new nuclei, and you'll see that little bits of this, okay, are starting to be added and added and added, and this cell plate gets thicker and thicker, and then a cell membrane and cell wall develops, and now these are two new plant cells. So that is cytokinesis. So this is kind of the overall of the cell cycle. All this G1, S, and G2 are all a part of interphase. Okay, that's why they're all listed under interphase. And then there's mitosis, and then right here where you see the arrow right now would be the cytokinesis. So if we push play, we can watch, we're going to look at this cell right here, and we can watch it divide. So we're in interphase right now, it's growing, okay? It's growing, and now it's dividing its DNA. Look, it now has 2 copies of each, and now it's growing some more, and now it's going to go through mitosis. See how it's dividing them up, and we are going to get our 2 new nuclei, and now we go through cytokinesis and we split those 2 in half. So this is the cell cycle, and if it goes, it'll just keep going and going and going, okay? We're not going to deal with the rest points in this level, but you can see that it keeps going and going, and now it's growing some more, and now it's going to go through the process of mitosis, and now cytokinesis, and it's done. Okay, this is a really good website to look at for the cell cycle, and you guys are actually going to do homework on Monday night for this, but it's called cellsalive.com. Really fun to play with this stuff on there, so if you're bored this weekend and want something to do, cellsalive.com. So, all right, I hope that makes sense. Thank you.